And Mark, let's move on into the next team. This is a team that is another one that I am very high on. This was my other team that when I mentioned earlier, the most interesting teams for me are the Broncos and then the Los Angeles Chargers. And I say that, and as I say that, I was already going to ask you about an injury that they got in the backfield, but today, the day as we record this on July 31st, today at training camp for the Chargers, yet another injury to the secondary. So that's what we're going to do to start this preview. We're going to try to kind of break down what's going on in the secondary. So the first injury we got is Jason Verrett. He tore his ACL, done for the whole year. You don't have to look into that any further. Then today, cornerback Trevor Williams, who would have been starting most likely on the right side for this LA team, he was guarding Mike Williams on a go route. He injures his left ankle, and they're saying that the injury, are they going to say it's a sprain, or are they just saying no? They're just saying he injured his left ankle and then was helped off the field. So this is a team, they now lose Verrett. They lose Trevor Williams, who we don't know how long he's going to be out for. This team has some young cornerbacks like Desmond King, who was from the Iowa Hawkeyes, Michael Davis, Jeff Richards. I want to ask you, these are just on top of also, like you mentioned to me before we started recording this segment, Hunter Henry, also an injury that we'll get into. But just with the cornerbacks right now, how much of a hurt is this for the Chargers already in training camp?
Well, yeah, it definitely is. I mean, fortunately, they've got a great pass rush, so that kind of relieves a little bit of the defensive back, the pressure that's put on them a little bit. But we can't ignore the fact, too, that, Derwin James, who's not a corner, he's a safety, but he's a little banged up now as well. He's missed some of this practice. So this is a banged-up unit already, and especially for a team that kind of has a history with injury issues, and a lot of disappointment that comes from really well-put-together teams that just fall apart injury-wise, or good seasons that fall apart because of injury. It's just kind of a never-ending thing for the Chargers.
Just to cut you off, I don't mean to, but Phillip Rivers has got to be sitting there going, really? Like, can I have 1 year where, like, we have a healthy team and I can just see what I can do?
Yeah, I mean, they never get that. I mean, it's just one of those things where there are certain teams where you shouldn't be a fan of them. And unfortunately, the Chargers are one of those ones because no matter what the team does, it always catches up to them of just everything goes poorly. And injury is one of those issues right now for the Chargers, unfortunately, because they have already been hit very hard with them.
No, and I mean, the thing that you mentioned was one of the things that before these injuries happened, I was like, oh, we're probably going to talk about that to start this preview. Is the best thing probably about this defense is that pass rush you mentioned, or just the front four in general with Bosa and Ingram on the outside, and then Leggett and Mabane on the inside, to where I don't want to be going up against that defensive line at all, especially the Bosa-Ingram duo coming at me from the outside. I wonder what these, I wonder if these backup corners, like I mentioned, like the Desmond Kings, the Michael Richards, or Jeff Richards, Michael Davis, that's what I meant to say. If those guys can step up in the loss of Verrett and Williams, and also when is Williams going to come back? Because they did ask Brandon Mabane after practice, and he said, now, quote, he'll bounce back. It sucks, but it's part of the game. Sometimes you're going to have guys go down, and you have to have other guys step up. I know that I don't think it was last year, maybe it was the year before, but like Keenan Allen goes down with an injury in preseason. Like, this Charger team is no stranger to injuries in the preseason, but this is a team that I'm going to say I'm still pretty high on this year in the division, because for me, just kind of to map through what the AFC West is going through, The Broncos got better. They should have a winning record this year. To me, the Raiders didn't really get better. We talked about them. And the Chiefs, you can say, kind of got worse because they made some moves in the secondary. They lost some defensive guys at linebacker and secondary. They lose Alex Smith. Yeah, they have Patrick Mahomes, who they're confident in, but he's still only a second-year starter. This, to me, even with these two injuries, could be the year that Phillip Rivers in this offense kind of maybe take on the load a little bit because of the cornerback injuries. But this could be the year where the Chargers say, hey, you know what? We're going to take a hold of this division, and we're going to be a playoff team. Because I look at the offense, Melvin Gordon's going to be really good. I like the backup that they also drafted in Justin Jackson, who played his college ball here in Chicago for Northwestern. If the wide receivers can stay healthy, Keenan Allen, Terrell Williams, Mike Williams, Travis Benjamin should be a good up-front core for this team. I'll ask you, is this a Charger team that could win the AFC West this year?
It's possible, and I certainly think the division helps them out a little bit. But, you know, and I'm down on the Chiefs a little bit with Mahomes as well because it's a new quarterback. And, you know, you mentioned him being in his second year, but he, playing-wise, essentially will be a rookie. I mean, he got, one game last year?
The Week 17 game against the Broncos. I believe that one was at home, though.
Yeah, so he got one opportunity, which is great, but you know, Andy Reid's not going to go easy on him, though, and they're going to give him everything, and they're going to let him play. And Andy Reid knows how to get his all out of a quarterback. So they should still be pretty good, but, you know, and then Denver Broncos defense is good. We'll see how the offense goes, but still, you know, the Chargers should be able to do it. But what they really need is they need some people to actually produce the way they should. Mike Williams is a perfect example of that. They really need him to shine in his second year. If he's not going to be what they drafted him to be, that can be an issue. You know, once again, these are injury problems that have kind of been the problem there.
Like, he only played 10 games last year.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's not like he played nothing, but, you know, you draft a guy in the first round, you want him obviously there all 16 games. There's also a big kind of mystery right now when you look at the Chargers' offensive line with Pouncey, with Feeney. There's just kind of, it's right in the middle, and I don't know, it's not anything that you are terribly concerned about of like, oh, this is going to ruin our season, but you really need some success out of there. I mean, Forrest Lamp as well, the right guard, just in his second year, you know, and he did well. He definitely has a lot of success. I mean, especially coming out of college, he was a guy I liked a lot. The Chargers need a lot of these things to perform up to expectations, I guess, or up to the potential. You know, I love a guy like Derwin James, but is an injury in the preseason going to limit his ability to actually get out there and get his reps and perform well enough to possibly earn a job if it's going to be a competition in camp, or is he going to not be able to perform as well because he's not as confident due to this injury? And for a rookie, confidence is a huge part of having any success. So the Chargers do not have an easy road to winning this division. Now, I think that there's a good chance the Chargers will win the division. I like the Chargers a lot. I mean, I like Phillip Rivers. I always do. This offense, always on paper at least, looks phenomenal. The pass rush is great as well. They have everything they need to be able to win, to be able to be a 10-win team, if not, you know, maybe 11. But they do have some concerns, and Charger fans will say it themselves. Things tend to go wrong for the Chargers. If it can go wrong, it's going to go wrong for them.
Kind of Murphy's Law for them?
Yeah, essentially. So, you know, I know that they're not going to be taking it easy. They're not going to assume that, oh, yeah, we'll breeze through teams like the Browns and the Bills, and we'll beat the Seahawks, the Cardinals. They're not going to just assume they're going to beat any of these teams because they've seen it go wrong very quickly in the past.
Well, and the one thing I'm looking at here, and of course this article is from May, when the Hunter Henry injury happened. Right now I look at the depth chart, and for me, Hunter Henry was the guy coming into this year that I was kind of looking forward to where it's like, hey, you know what? This will be the first year without Antonio Gates. We're now moving on in a post-Antonio Gates kind of era for the Chargers, and not like saying last year was like, ooh, great Antonio Gates, like 1,000-yard receiving Antonio Gates, but he still was a veteran tight end and a good safety blanket for Phillip Rivers. Now you got Virgil Green as your starting tight end. So for me, one of the questions that this article on ESPN kind of raises is, could the Hunter Henry injury could that spark a reunion for Antonio Gates to come back to the team? I don't think so. I'd
be very surprised if it did.
I wouldn't be surprised, but at the same time, I would also be like, just let Antonio be Antonio at this point. Like, you guys don't need Antonio Gates to be successful, but I hate to harp on its injury so far. And like looking at the wide receivers, for example, Keenan Allen played all 16 games last year, was their best receiver by far. But like after that, Terrell Williams, 16 games, but had 728 yards on that year. The big ones were like Travis Benjamin, who was a sub 600 wide receiver. The Mike Williams, who we said missed 6 games last year. Can these guys step up? And also, is Melvin Gordon are they going to be a team that relies on Melvin Gordon to be, hey, you got to be that 1,000-yard back for us? Because it's not like Melvin Gordon was a workhorse getting into the end zone a lot either. He only had 8 touchdowns. When you look at the wide receivers, Keenan Allen had 6, and then the rest of the wide receivers, Terrell Williams, Hunter Henry, Travis Benjamin, and then Melvin Gordon also, they had 4 touchdowns each. So it's not like one guy is like, hey, I'm the guy that's going to get us into the end zone, kind of spreading the ball out a little bit. I just, with this Charger team, wonder if they can overcome the injuries that are already in place. I think they will. Are they going to win the division? I don't know. It comes down to, for me, I like the Broncos. Like, if you put a gun to my head and said, Ricky, who do you like better, the Broncos or the Chargers? I'm going to say the Broncos all day because I like the defense a little bit better, plus it's a healthier defense than the Chargers. Also, I feel more confident in the Bronco offense than I do the Charger offense. And I know that may sound crazy, but it's like the Chargers haven't shown me what they can be. Yeah, I'm high on them. I think they'll be a playoff team, but they got to show me what they can do in 2016. And I mean, looking at their schedule this year, it's not a terrible schedule. Like, the division will be tough. It always is. That's something we always say regardless of divisions. But I mean, their toughest opponents are, you've got the Rams that you play on the road. You've got the Niners I'll throw in there. You play, that one's in my playoff, so I won't give that away. You got the Steelers week 13. And really, other than that, all the other games, except for the division, I'm kind of pushing that aside. All the other games are like, they're winnable games. You should be able to beat the Bills. You should be able to at least take maybe 1 or 2 from the Raiders. You should be able to beat the Browns. The Titans won't be as strong in my mind. I'm not as high on the Bengals as you are. The Cardinals are another team of they could win that game. So, I mean, yeah, they've got like maybe these 4 games that are really tough, but the rest of their schedule, it's not world beaters that the Chargers are playing in 2018.
No, it's not. It definitely isn't that they've got the worst schedule. And there's a good chance they'll have a fairly easy schedule when we look back on strength of schedule at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I do think that there's a really good potential that the Broncos, Chiefs, and Chargers are all right in the thick of the competition to win this division. Like I said, you can't count out Andy Reid ever. We both like what the Broncos have going on. And the Chargers look really good just without injuries coming back to get them on this.
Yeah.
So, if things go well for them, they're right in the playoffs. But even if they don't get the division win, without a doubt, they're still going to actually be competing for a wild card spot. The team I would expect right now, the team out of the AFC West who doesn't win the division, so your next best team, they're probably either 6 or 7, in the AFC. So either just getting in the playoffs, just missing the playoffs. And it's going to, a lot of that's going to depend on what some of the other teams do. And, and we talked about the AFC North and how that's a tough competition. The AFC South, that's going to be a tough competition between the Texans and the Jaguars, and now the Colts with Andrew Luck being back and actually able to throw some footballs. So there's a lot. It's going to be, the AFC should be tougher this year than it has been the past couple of years. Not as tough as the NFC, but it will be tougher.
Here's a question I'm going to ask you, and I know that you're probably thinking, hey, Rick, after I ask this, you'll be thinking, hey, you should have saved this for the Chiefs segment, but I'll ask it anyways. What would you put the percentage on the Broncos, Chargers, and Chiefs all making the playoffs this year?
All of them, probably, I want to say 0, but it's technically possible. I really, really doubt it. I really, really doubt that would happen, because then you're assuming that, from the AFC South, the Texans with Deshaun Watson are not a good enough team to get in the playoffs, or the Jaguars, who were just a game away from the Super Bowl, are not good enough to get in the playoffs. The Steelers, once again, just in the playoffs, not good enough. The Ravens, an improved team, not good enough either. Is it certainly possible? Maybe the Ravens aren't as good as I have expected them to be able to get into the playoffs. Maybe Deshaun Watson, maybe injuries is a big issue for him for the rest of his career. Sure, the Chiefs and the Broncos and the Chargers could all make it, but I'd be surprised to see 3 teams out of the AFC West get in there.
Because, the reason why I ask is I'm not going to give anything away, because we are, after today, as we start tomorrow, we're 20 days away until our hold them to us predictions. Then an injury will happen, and we got to do our revised hold them to us predictions like the Teddy Bridgewater injury did a couple years ago. But I wouldn't be surprised if, because I'm looking at how I have the AFC kind of playing out right now, I wouldn't be surprised if, in the AFC West, Team A, who wins the division, is at 12 wins. Team B, who's in second, is at 10 wins. Team C is at 9 wins and has enough of the tiebreakers to get that 6th spot in the playoffs. Do I see it happen? Probably not, because, the way I'm looking at it is there's about 4 teams in the AFC that are going to be right there fighting for that last 6th spot in the AFC playoff race. So, it's not going to be this playoff race is over with 3 weeks to go. We're going to definitely see that come down to the line by the end. But this Charger team, even though they've got injuries already, Hunter Henry and the cornerbacks that we already talked about, I still think this team can be a successful one in 2018, mainly because of their schedule. Like you saying, we'll probably look back on it and go, this was not a real tough schedule. They really had a favorable schedule. And one of the main reasons why they were able to maybe make the playoffs this year, I will ask you before we move on into the Kansas City Chiefs, do you have any final thoughts on the Los Angeles Chargers?
Pretty much for me, it's going to come down to, is the team going to stay healthy? And I'm very interested to see what we get out of Joey Bosa this year, and if he can continue to elevate himself and just move further along in his progression, because you mentioned Roquan Smith earlier not being signed to a deal yet, but Joey Bosa was that guy last year, the guy who had the rookie holdout, and when he did get a chance to finally play his games, he made a statement, and if he can progress that much further and just continue. I've talked about the Chargers pass rush quite a bit on this podcast, but it's one for other teams and other quarterbacks to be terrified of. And Joey Bosa's kind of the big piece to the puzzle for the Chargers. If they're going to win a lot of these games, they're going to need defense to step up to help them out with that. And I think Joey Bosa is going to be a huge factor in that case.
Do I think it happens? No, but I'm still going to say it anyways. If the Chargers do become injury plagued and do finish with a top 5 pick in next year's draft, me personally, I would not be ashamed and be hurting with that, because there's a part of me that wants this team to be I would not be upset if this team was in position to nab the little Bosa, who's right now at Ohio State, who we're probably going to be talking about all year when it comes to NFL draft talk. That's one thing that I'm like, man, he's probably going to be way too good to be drafted by the Los Angeles Chargers unless some tweet comes out about him or he's smoking pot the day of the draft.
They don't really have a spot for him either, though.
Hey man, if Joey Bosa, if Nick Bosa's there, go ahead and reunite the brothers, I would say, in Los Angeles. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in that comment section. How high are you on the Chargers this year? Do you think that the injuries are going to keep them and set them back this year? I know it's early, but set them back to where maybe they do finish 9-7, 8-8, and do not make the playoffs. Let us know what you guys are thinking down below in that comment section.